A paradox survives where it should not. In the year 79, Mount Vesuvius buried Pompeii under ash and pumice, turning streets into dust and breath into silence. And yet, centuries later, scholars still walk those ruins and read fragments of everyday life. A soot-darkened wall where a message once insisted, a wheel groove pressed into stone, a mosaic that holds its colors as if time was careful with it. The official story is preservation through catastrophe. The anomaly is stranger. Some objects endured in a way that seems impossible, not only intact, but legible, structured, and meaningful. As though the city had been packed for storage by a mind that understood how decay works. Now bring that into the body you recognize. Most days, anxiety does the opposite of preservation. It doesn't bury you in one clean moment. It scatters you across minutes like loose pages in wind. You try to sit still, and your thoughts refuse to stay filed. You open a phone, and distraction arrives with the confidence of a natural law. You feel as if calm should survive because you want it, but it won't hold its shape. You watch your attention crumble, and you wonder whether you're simply failing at something everyone else has mastered. The historical record gives us a clue about what calm actually is. Pompeii's ash didn't just freeze objects. It shielded them from air, from moisture, from the slow chemistry that erases. Calm, too, is not a mood you wait to receive. It's a condition that protects the mind from corrosive forces, fragmentation, noise, and the constant assumption that urgency is real. When people today say they want peace, they often mean they want fewer distractions. But the deeper need is insulation and environment, inside and outside you, where the mind can keep its form long enough to become useful. So here is the first question we inherit from the silent archive. If the past can outlast expectation, what exactly did someone directly or indirectly do to make that survival possible? Not magic, not luck, a discipline of containment, a way of arranging the world so it supports meaning rather than dissolves it. And if you've ever tried meditation or long reading, or even a serious conversation and felt your attention leak away like water through an old container, you're already standing in front of this puzzle. The paradox of calm begins where preservation begins, with what you allow to touch your inner life, and what you block before it steals your steadiness. In the next part, we'll look at the simplest human technology for doing exactly that without myth, without theatrics, and without requiring you to be special to benefit from it. The official story we inherit about ancient spirituality is usually romantic and commercial at the same time. In textbooks, monks and sages are treated like symbols, and their practices are treated like beliefs. Either you're inspired by the mystics, or you're skeptical of them. The real historical scaffolding is simpler than that. People in the ancient world organized life around repeatable methods, daily schedules, controlled environments, chants that train breath and timing, rules for what to eat and what to avoid. If you wanted calm, you didn't simply wish for it. You built conditions where calm could survive. Look at how many of these records emphasize boundaries. Temples were not only places of prayer, they were designed to reduce intrusion. Even before neuroscience had a name for it, cultures understood that attention is not infinite. It leaks. It follows sound, novelty, threat, and fatigue. So spirituality, in its earliest forms, often reads like engineering for the inner sensorium. The goal wasn't to purchase enlightenment. The goal was to manufacture the environment in which a human mind could function without being constantly hijacked. Now here is the anomaly that the romantic narrative tends to hide. When you study the methods closely, the miracles are rarely spontaneous. They are outcomes of constraints. The calm shows up after training, after repetition, after a narrowing of inputs. The extraordinary experiences described in old texts, visions, luminous peace. Deep clarity can be read as byproducts of disciplined perception. In other words, the past didn't hand people a product. It built a mechanism. That mechanism is attention. Attention isn't just focus. It's the selective light of consciousness. Where it lands, the mind grows structure. Where it scatters, the mind dissolves into reaction. The spiritual methods were built, not bought, because they treated perception like something you could tune. Breath practices regulated arousal. Monastic routines reduced novelty. Structured recitation stabilized rhythm. Simple prohibitions limited the noise coming in. None of it requires supernatural claims. It is the logic of any craft. You shape inputs, you change outputs. When people today chase spirituality as if it were an alternative lifestyle brand, they often do the opposite of what the old methods did. They add more stimuli, more consumption, more identity performance. They try to feel sacred while living in a constant stream of interruptions. That's why the mind feels restless even when the heart wants meaning. The technology is there, but the container is missing. There is also a psychological reason these ancient systems sounded mystical in the first place. When you finally stop leaking attention, your inner landscape feels larger than usual. You experience your thoughts as events rather than commands. You notice emotions as weather instead of destiny. That can feel like revelation, especially if you grew up believing that feeling comes from outside you. But what is actually happening is simpler. Trained perception begins to notice what it previously ignored. So as we move forward, keep this key in mind. The past spirituality was not a marketplace of miracles. It was a toolkit for preserving the mind from corrosive forces so calm could be protected, not borrowed. In the next part, we'll translate that ancient engineering into one of the most basic human methods for redirecting attention, without myths, without spectacle, and without needing you to be anything other than present. The old masters were engineers of experience. And experience is always made from simple operations. You do not need to become a different person. You need to become a steadier processor of reality. Practical spiritual living means treating the inner life like something you can train, the way you train posture or breath, with patience and repetition. The mysticism you've heard about was mostly the side effect of doing disciplined attention in a world that was already noisy. Start with focus, but not as a battle. Modern life asks you to fight your mind, to wrestle with distraction like it's an enemy that must be defeated. The older technology had a quieter instruction. Notice what is happening, then return to the chosen input. In plain terms, you pick one point to attend to, and you practice coming back when you drift. That's restraint, not deprivation. It's choosing what gets your electricity. Restraint shows up everywhere once you understand it. It's the moment you pause before you refresh, before you reply, before you turn every feeling into a decision. It's the ability to delay stimulation long enough for your values to speak. When you stop immediately satisfying every itch, something surprising occurs. Your attention stops feeling borrowed. You begin to feel ownership again. That ownership is the first taste of meaning, because meaning requires continuity, and continuity requires regulation. Now consider meaning-making, which is where people confuse spirituality with philosophy posters. The ancient systems didn't ask you to believe harder. They trained how you interpret. When thoughts and emotions arrive, you can treat them like commands, or you can treat them like signals. A thought saying act now is not the same as a reason. An emotion saying you're unsafe is not the same as proof. Trained perception separates experience from instruction. This is why the inner life can become quieter without becoming numb. You are not suppressing. You are sorting. If this sounds almost too simple, good. Simplicity is the whole point of technology. A tool works because it reduces chaos, not because it adds drama. You don't need a spiritual identity. You need a practice that can be repeated on ordinary days when nobody is watching and you're tempted to collapse into the default stream. Every time you return back to breath, back to a steady phrase, back to the body, you are building a small inner architecture that can hold you. Try this as a living experiment. Before you touch your day, take 1 minute to set your attention as if it were a light you can aim. Notice where it goes. When it drifts, treat it like normal and return without punishment. Then carry that micro skill into the next interruption. When the impulse arrives to chase stimulation, feel the impulse as energy and choose a smaller response. This is spiritual restraint. You don't stop being human, you stop being ruled by reflex. What you're practicing really is reverence made operational. Reverence means you treat your own mind as sacred ground, not because it's magical, but because it determines your life. The next time you feel restless, don't ask what you should consume to fix it. Ask what attention can be shaped into. That question will lead us deeper into a method you can do right now, in your own pace. With no spectacle, only the steady return. The key you carry is not a symbol. It's a movement of attention, practiced until it becomes your default direction. Today, you don't need a grand vow. You need a daily protocol small enough to survive a busy schedule and honest enough to work when you're tired. One start before you speak to anyone. One slow breath in, one slow breath out. Then place your hand lightly on your chest or your desk, somewhere that says, "This is my body, this is where I am." Now choose a simple phrase that means return, something like steady, present, or enough. Say it once in your mind, not to summon power, but to set a constraint. The way a gate sets boundaries for a field. The protocol is only 3 steps, repeated through the day. First, aim. Notice what you're about to do and bring attention to the first moment of it. Second, detect. When distraction or dread arrives, feel it as sensation, not as a verdict. Anxiety becomes tightness. Restlessness becomes heat. Avoidance becomes a pull. Name it without arguing. Third, return. When you catch yourself drifting, come back to breath and the phrase, as if you were taking your place in a room you already belong to. Keep the return gentle. Not because it's easy, but because your nervous system learns through safety. Each time you return, you teach your mind that it doesn't have to panic to regain control. That's what ancient spiritual living often was. Not escape, but training. In old monasteries, the practice looked like rituals in modern life. It looks like choosing a smaller response to a larger impulse. If you do this for 1 day, you'll feel the shift. If you do it for 7, you'll notice a new relationship to yourself. You'll stop treating your attention like whether something that happens to you and start treating it like a lever you can move. That is reverence made operational, sacred ground, everyday feet. Now, carry that key into the world you live in. When someone interrupts you, return first, then answer. When your mind reaches for stimulation, feel the reaching, choose your phrase. And let the moment pass through you instead of grabbing you by the collar. When the day ends, take 1 breath and ask, what did I practice today? Reverence or reflex? Then go to sleep without rehearsing failure. And if you want a circle of seekers rather than a crowd of noise, hold this practice with others quietly. Bring 1 person to this protocol with you, someone who values steadiness over spectacle. Not everyone will understand, and that's fine. You don't need mass approval. You need repetition and a shared commitment to returning.